Welcome to the World Away.
Travel tales to inspire your wanderlust.
Welcome back to the World Awaits. I hope you've all had a wonderful week. And how's your week been, Belle? Although I don't need to ask because we got to spend some time in real life together, which was so nice.
I know, we had such a fantastic week in and out of the tennis. And if you head over to our Instagram at the World Awaits podcast, you'll be able to see what we got up to in the Emirates suite during the quarterfinals. Here's a hint. There was caviar, there was champagne, there was a string quartet from the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. We did catch up with Australian coach and former champ Mark Philippoussis, who shared a couple of tips on how Sinner could take his matches to the top. Clearly, Jannik Sinner wasn't watching because he was bumped by none other than Novak Djokovic, which was just astonishing. We also got photos with the Australian Open trophies, which were brought into the Emirates suite, and that was all just before the actual game started. It was so good.
So good. And fun fact, the Australian Open this year has actually become the biggest economic earner in Australian sport, and it bringing in, get this, $600 million to the Victorian economy. So that just proves the power of sports tourism, which we've talked about on the podcast previously about being a really popular growth area in tourism. And there were some stats from last year, and it said in the first 2 weeks of last year's event, the closest suburbs to Melbourne Park, where the tennis is being held, has had a really big surge in accommodation and food and wine spending because obviously people are staying in these areas. So Richmond recorded a 90% surge in accommodation and 18% jump in restaurant spend. And in South Yarra, they had more than 50% in accommodation and about 17%. So that's a really big boost for those local eateries and hotels.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Victoria's economy needs all the help it can get. But can I also mention, well, we've had a fabulous experience with Emirates and also Marriott Bonvoy, who I went with the week before. A ground pass bought the months before the event would have set you back as little as $10 or $5 for kids because, it's just incredible value. But the activations around the precinct are just so spectacular and you can literally grab them for a song.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a good tip for next year because this year's sadly over now. But next year, obviously, if you put this in your calendar for next year, make sure you get in advance because the vibe sitting around on the grass in front of that big screen and all the food and wine trucks around there is just, the vibe's just incredible down on the ground. So it's definitely worth it. And like Belle said, it's such a good value for money. Right, so we're kicking off this week. We have the latest findings from Omio of Europe's fastest rising, lesser known hotspots for 2026. Europe seems to never slow. I mean, everyone I seem to talk to is going to Europe every year. And there's reasons for it, obviously. I mean, there's so many experiences to be had, and obviously great cultural experiences and great cultures to be among.
Yeah, the report found that while major capitals continue to attract strong demand, nearly 20% of Australian travellers responding to this survey plan to visit lesser-known destinations in 2026. And the motivators for that are, of course, it is cheaper. There are unique culture and attractions. There are some weird festivals, some fabulous festivals that happen in regional Europe, and also less crowds. And you just get that more authentic local vibe as well.
Are they as weird as some of the ones we've talked about on the podcast, like watermelon skiing?
Oh, I think, well, I mean, La Tomatina is always a fabulous one. People are literally throwing tomatoes at each other. Look, I was reading about a festival the other day in South Australia where people throw tuna. It's called Tunarama in South Australia. I thought that was fantastic. So we can hold our own, but Europe also has some fabulous ones that go back an extra 800 years or so.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, maybe we'll have to revisit some of those local ones in another episode. So Omio says instead of defaulting to major capitals, Aussie travellers are seeking places with character, better affordability, like Belle just said before, and a strong sense of local identity. And it's seeing that shift reflected in its booking patterns too. And it's also driven by how easy it is to reach some of these destinations.
I know. Well, some of the stuff in Australia is fabulous, but it's also really tricky to get to without a car. So let's take the case in point. The top 10 fastest growing, lesser known hotspots include Salamanca in Spain, sandstone city, steeped in history, fabulous architecture, great vibe because it's a university city, and a calendar of cultural events that are just phenomenal. But here's the clincher too. You can get there for in under 2 hours by train from Madrid. And the second one is also in Spain, which is Marbella, down in the south, which has evolved into this year-round destination with hiking routes in the nearby Sierra Blanca. I mean, I've stayed down here in the White Villages, absolutely gorgeous. It has a fabulous food scene, a contemporary food scene. Again, a year-round calendar of cultural festivals and sporting events. And it is, you get there by taking a train from Madrid to Malaga, and then you just jump on a bus. It's so easy.
Third and fourth are in Italy, starting with Monopoli in Puglia, with its whitewashed old town harbour views and fresh seafood. And it's actually a more slower, sun-drenched alternative, so it says, to Italy's bigger coastal hubs. And you can also get there by train in around half an hour from Bari. And fourth is Poliano a Mare, also in Puglia. And this is also just a short train ride from the capital and perched on limestone cliffs known for its turquoise coves and Adriatic views.
Puglia also ranks number 5 with Alberobello, one of the region's most recognizable destinations for its UNESCO-listed Trulli houses and really distinctive streetscape. And then coming in number 6 is Matera, also near Puglia, in the lesser-known region of Basilicata. Matera is famous for its cave dwellings. It's got a great program of exhibitions, and interesting fact, it was the European Capital of Culture in 2019, and that whole program was developed to bring people to these lesser-known towns and cities around Europe. So it's a great indicator if you're looking for, particularly for cultural destination in Europe. Go back and see what the previous capitals were, and that will and they'll send you to these sorts of places.
Yeah, such good advice. I think the world's also telling us something here, Belle, because in 7th place, we're back in Puglia in Bari, the capital of the region with its lively port, university hub, and thriving food culture.
But number 8 goes back to Spain, one of my favourite countries, and we are in Murcia with its Baroque architecture and the reputation amongst travellers looking for a quieter Spanish city with strong culinary roots. And that's followed by another Spanish charmer, which is Santiago de Compostela, known for the Camino pilgrimage. Santiago's historic city is a draw in its own right, of course, especially for travellers following those ancient routes. And then rounding up the top 10 is Valladolid, an hour northwest of Madrid in Spain, with its Renaissance buildings, acclaimed regional wines, and an increasingly fabulous food scene. I absolutely love Spain, but I haven't been up in the northwest forever. So my last trip was down in southern Andalusia. And if you don't have Cadiz on your radar, please put it there. Seaside town, beloved by Spaniards, so it's not so much on the international tourism scene. Seafood, incredible history, all the sherry, which is the coolest drink ever in Spain. So, I think I left a piece of my heart there. I'm going to go retire there, maybe.
And maybe, look, not lesser known, but probably definitely lesser visited is the south of Sardinia. So it's not on the list, but I'm going to add this little one in too, because it's so quiet, even in peak season. And when you cycle around there, you see all the landscapes. You want to get out of Italy in one little area. So you get abandoned medieval villages, vineyards, that rolling sort of verdant farmland, and pretty little coastal towns with white sand beaches and those beautiful colours of the Mediterranean beach that we all go over to Europe for. And we will put a link to Omio's full travel report in the show notes. This week, I'm chatting with UTRAC's hiking guide, Jaclyn Begley, who takes guests through Le Puy Camino, also known as the French Camino.
You know, those pilgrimage routes are so interesting, and the whole region is laced with them. I did actually walk a section of the Via Francigena, which starts in England and goes to Rome through Tuscany years ago. This is, again, another separate route. So what made you want to chat to Jaclyn, Kirsty?
Yeah, well, a lot of keen walkers and hikers do know, obviously, about the Camino and primarily around Spanish Camino, but many may not have considered this journey through pilgrims across France. So the reason this section was established is actually that the pilgrims who were coming from Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and Poland and wanted to walk across Spain to get to the starting point, needed a route to get there. So they were all walking across France. And so that's why this particular route was established. So Jaclyn and I talk about why you should consider the French Camino and what it offers that differs from other sections of the Camino. And we also touch on the holiday house that she's recently bought in Italy. Oh my God, jealous, not. And she has some tips for those who want to follow in her footsteps. Welcome to the show, Jaclyn.
Thank you.
So great to have you on the World Awaits. So let's start by tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into travel, and and we'll talk about the French Camino.
Okay, sure. I think I was obsessed with traveling and wanting to travel for as long as I can remember. I started saving to go overseas on a round the world trip early in high school. It was all I wanted to do. I just wanted to get out and see the world. And so I did do that and did what a lot of young people did and lived in London and did lots of traveling. And by the time I'd completed that, I just knew there was really nothing else in my life that had as much meaning as travel, and I wanted to find a way to work in the industry. So I did, and I started in retail, and then I've spent the last 20 years with tour wholesalers, which I really, or tour operators. I really enjoy that side of the business because I get to see it from all angles, and you get to really have a bit of an impact in the way tours are shaped or how you're bringing them to people. So that side of the industry has been really great. So, and now I lead as well a couple of times a year, which gives me this incredible sort of 360 view of the industry, I think. So yeah, it's really varied and interesting.
Amazing. So, and talking about those tours that you're leading. So you're doing the French Camino. So what is it about, just generally about the Camino? What is it about it that appeals to so many walkers?
Well, it's been around for over 1,000 years, which some people may know because it is an extremely famous set of walking trails and paths that are in Europe. But yeah, origins go back over 1,000 years. So it has always been extremely significant, extremely meaningful. And in the years since then, lots of books and films have been made about it as a sort of path for seekers. I think, there's something very kind of different and alternative. I think when people are looking for something beyond the normal sort of tour experience or a coach or a cruise, which have their place, of course, but when people are really seeking something different, something with purpose and meaning, this trip has really come along to deliver that. And the active element, I think there's a real sense of accomplishment that comes with undertaking a trip with that effort. So yeah, some people use it as a way to get to nature or to have some time out from their careers or to be undertaking an effort, a walking effort that's something maybe they haven't done before. So lots of people go into it with sort of different goals, and it really does give people that. It's a really meaningful experience. I've never met anyone who didn't really get something out of it, and more so I've met people who go back time and time again. It's a very addictive thing to do. Lots of people, once they've walked one of the Camino paths, do go back. Sometimes the same path repeatedly, and then sometimes, like I have, sort of exploring different paths as well.
Amazing. So, and you've done the French Camino part quite a few times, haven't you?
Yes, so I've walked the European Caminos in France, Spain, and Portugal, which are the main Camino de Santiago paths, and the French one is my favourite. I think it's extraordinarily beautiful. It's the spot for me in so many ways, especially as someone who loves food and wine.
So what is it about the French path? Because most people wouldn't necessarily think that, France would be top of mind as sort of a place to hike. So besides the food, of course, and the wine,
Yes.
what else is it that makes it so appealing?
I think it's the landscape, for sure. I mean, Paris is the most visited city in the world, or amongst them, and I think people are kind of familiar with some of the scenes and sights that have been in so many films and books and things. But when you get out into the countryside in France, it's really slow living a lot of the time. I mean, these are quite
low key, sort of quite traditional places, and everything moves at a slower pace, and it's extremely relaxing and welcoming. And in the trip that we do, in 10 days, we cover what is a 700-kilometer walking path, because we're using a vehicle as well. We don't walk 700 kilometers in 10 days. That would be insane. But and we walk through all these different regions, and they change completely. So we start in Le Puy-en-Velay, and then we finish right near the Spanish border, and the scenery just changes entirely in that 10 days. We see different landscapes, different food, different architecture, and it's just extraordinary that there's that amount of diversity in the landscape in France. And I think people possibly haven't seen it because we all naturally sort of go to these places that we've heard about a lot. And so there are some really visited places, and we're seeing this in all different parts of the world where we all go to the places we've heard about. And there's all these other gems there to discover, and France is full of them. It's extremely, extremely beautiful.
What's your favorite part of it? Like, and what's some of your favorite experiences doing it?
On this path, landscape-wise, I absolutely love an area called the Aubrac Plateau. It's really kind of got this very mystical kind of feeling. It's almost like the moors of Scotland or Ireland, this big open plateau, and sometimes it's all misty, and it's just got a wonderful atmosphere, and it's often quite blustery and sort of hard going even when you're walking, even in the summer, but it's just really captivating at the same time. And then I'm a big flower lover. In spring, this path is just spectacular. It's carpeted in flowers in different parts. It's just absolutely beautiful. Yeah, the scenery changes so much. I absolutely love the landscape on this trip. I really do. And when you approach the Pyrenees, it's like being in Switzerland. It's all rolling green fields dotted with cows, and you've got mountains in the backdrop. It's just, you see all of that in 10 days. It's just incredible. Just a really, really diverse landscape.
And so what else is it that sort of personally captivates you so much about hiking in France generally?
I think it's that kind of slow travel idea. I really think just taking everything down a notch and just being a little bit closer to nature. I work in the city. I have an office job most of the year, and so just getting out into nature just is so rejuvenating. I feel better. I mean, even though you're being active and you're walking 10 or 15 kilometers every day, I just feel rested, and I love being out in the countryside. People are very welcoming. It's just a very simple life. You're walking and eating and sleeping, and it's just a real joy to do that as a form of holiday too, as opposed to sort of racing around.
Is that what more people are saying? Like, why, and what sort of people are you getting on these walks?
I mean, there's lots of different walks that U-Tracks have, and this particular one is about sort of condensing this whole Camino path, which would normally take weeks and weeks to do, 4 or 5 weeks, and we do it all in 10 days. So this is, I think, for people who want lots of experiences in a short period of time. But it is definitely about food and wine, because this one has a focus on the food and wine of the regions, but it is very, very beautiful landscapes. The walking is challenging enough that you feel that sense of accomplishment, but it's not so hard. And there's also a vehicle nearby, which is quite nice, should you need it. But I just think the towns are so well preserved. A couple of the places we stay are like film sets. They're just these gorgeous stone medieval towns. And yeah, I think people like that idea of going somewhere where they can be really immersed in the countryside and the local villages and a local way of life. It's extremely French. Like everyone around you is all French accents, and you go into the stores and it feels a bit untouched. And I think we do crave that a bit, to find something that is more traditional and slow living. And it's very, very relaxing despite being an active trip, and yet you get to see a lot, and the variety is there for sure. So yeah, people who join this trip maybe are a little time poor, that they can't spend 4 or 5 weeks walking a full Camino path, but they still want a sort of a sense of getting away from it all and being immersed in nature and doing some walking and something active, but also being well fed.
What are some of the things that you're eating or some of the places that you're eating along the way?
Oh, it's lots of different things. I mean, 100% you're going to be going to the boulangeries and having all the cakes and beautiful bread. I mean, the pastries that they make in France are just unbeatable. I just don't think there's anything like it anywhere else in the world. And the cheese, we make lots of stops at local markets. So depending on the season, you've got all your stone fruits or berries, and all those delicious things, because we do picnics usually during the day. So lots of fresh seasonal things from the markets, and definitely lots of stops at the boulangeries. But we visit wineries and an Armagnac distillery, a truffle orchard, and we also have a Michelin paired dining experience in a chateau. So it's sort of all ends of the spectrum. But the local Aubrac beef is very famous. The cheeses are very well known, and the wines of this area, truffles, duck. It's typical French food of each region, and it is rich and very local. Yeah.
And that's the thing, isn't it? People want that sort of artisan producer sort of experience. Is that something that you think we're going to seeing more of, or in these sorts of areas, these sorts of remote areas that you're going?
I hope so. I think these people are doing incredible things, and it's not probably easy to, it costs a lot to do things by hand and to keep some of these businesses going. I mean, the Armagnac distillery that we go to is an 11 generation family business, and they're doing a very traditional old style of distilling of the Armagnac, and they would be one of very few producers who still do it that way, but it's extremely labor intensive. They've been very lucky that they've had their family members continue with the business, but that doesn't always happen, particularly with agriculture. If they have children, their children don't necessarily want to keep the business going, and then it doesn't necessarily deliver financially. So you have to be really committed to want to keep these traditions going. And I hope that when we have tours and tourism that will support and show interest in those sorts of things, that they will see the value to keep them going, because some of these traditions have been going hundreds of years, and they are producing something really special. So us being there and supporting it is what's going to keep it going.
Yeah, absolutely. It's devastating when these local traditions are lost.
Yeah.
So that's one of the benefits of tourism, isn't it? So what are your top 3 tips for people considering a hike in France if they hadn't been before?
Well, it might depend what kind of walking. So I guess I'm thinking a lot about the walk that we do on the Camino path, but the time of year, I think people do underestimate how hot Europe and France can be. We in Australia are used to warm summers, but they really do get some incredibly hot weather in Europe. And I've walked in France during a heat wave, and it was extremely tough. It was 43 degrees. There wasn't a lot of shade. It was really very uncomfortable. So June through August is a really warm time, and I think it's perfect for alpine walking, mind you. If you're going to go walking in the Alps, June through August is the summer, and that's great. But outside of the mountains, it really is hot, and so people do need to think about time of year. The main thing I think is you've got to just sort of go with the flow. Once you leave the cities, everything changes. It is a slower way of life, and it takes a bit of patience. You've got to just sort of be quite open-minded to the fact that Sundays and Mondays everything closes, and shops are meant to be open, but they're not, and the service can be slow, and it's just a little bit more it's rural living. And so when we're used to so many conveniences, and especially when you're traveling and you've got real hopes to do a lot of things and you've got a short amount of time to do them, I think if you turn up to a town and it's the Sunday, Monday when everything's closed, you could be really disappointed. So a bit of forward planning about your timing so that you don't miss out on any of those special moments, but also just when you're on a trip outside of the cities in particular, things will be on country time, and that's a wonderful thing, but it's also just requires a bit of patience, I think. And a bit less is more. I think we all pack a lot into our trips, and I'm very guilty of that. But walking is the epitome of slow travel, because you're forced to sort of be really slow and really present, and that's a great thing. But a lot of the times we on walking trips, you could do it, you can be walking all day and then come into a town and then give yourself no time to actually look at that town. So I always say to people if they're doing a self-guided trip, that they would potentially want to build in some time just to relax and see the place rather than arrive and sort of have to head off straight away the next day. And our guided trip already has lots of activities built in and some time to relax. But if you were planning your own trip, I would definitely say make sure you give yourself time to see things so that you're not just arriving and leaving without getting to sort of soak it up a bit.
And
That free?
it would be remiss of me not to mention that you've bought a place in Italy, haven't you? Because you love it so much.
Yeah.
So tell
Yeah.
us a bit about that. Like what made you want to buy in Italy, and where did you buy?
It's really I adore Europe. I've spent many, many years working specifically in European travel. So I've traveled in Europe a lot, and I just love it. Absolutely. France and Italy have always been the places I never, ever, ever tire of being. And I did a walk as part of my post-pandemic travels, and I walked 3 weeks solo on the Way of St. Francis, which is in Umbria in Italy. It's a beautiful walking trail. And I just thought this place is something else. It's so untouched. It felt really authentic. It's a very overused word, but it did feel very authentic. And I just loved the nature. It's so many beautiful walking trails. And it turns out you can buy a house there really cheaply. So when I got home, I showed the listings to my husband. And then I think it was about 5 months later, we put an offer on a place without seeing it. And then 12 months later, we were there collecting our keys. So it was completely spontaneous and a little bit mad, but it's been the most amazing thing. We've had it for a couple of years now, and we've met so many people, and we're exploring this little area, and it's just got so much to offer. And I think that's, again, like I used to always sort of dart around to new places, and now I'm seeing France over and over because I get to lead trips there, and that's always providing something new and wonderful. And then with my personal holidays, I tend to go to our place in Italy because we're renovating it, and I'm going back to this same area, but I'm always seeing something different. So I really have embraced this idea of going back to these same places and seeing it in a new light each time. If that makes any sense.
Amazing. And what's it like? Are you in a village or are you in a...
It is. It's in the old town of a village. It's a village that predates Rome. So it's a extremely old town, and it's really well preserved, and it's right up the top of the old town, and it's the top floor of a former palazzo, which sounds really fancy, but a palazzo was essentially a family home, and a grand family's home, so an important family's home. So this was the home of the Nazi family once upon a time, and we have the top floor, and it needs lots of love, but it's got nice bones, as they say, those old traditional floors and big shuttered windows, and looks out onto the countryside. It's a little dream.
Wow, incredible. And so will you eventually move there, or will you just keep splitting?
No, it's a kind of ridiculous holiday home, but for someone who loves Europe, and I hope it's always a part of my life in work and in my personal life. So at the moment, I'm going at least twice a year, which is fantastic. And I just want to always be connected to Europe and keep walking and eating and drinking there as much as I possibly can. So this has sort of cemented me going to that part. And at the moment, I'm really fortunate with my work. I'm getting to go to the south central part of France with leading groups. So can't complain. It's a good life.
And would you recommend to other people, or have you got any tips for anyone who would love to buy a property in Italy or France in an old town?
I mean, yes, I think it's been a huge adventure, and I had lots of encouragement from some people I talked to about it before I did it, who said, you'll figure things out, you'll meet people, you'll get the sort of help you need, because I felt incredibly clueless about what we were doing, and we had no experience, no money. Like, the whole thing was absurd, really. But so they were right. The people are around, and you do just figure out one thing at a time, as we do in all parts of life. And But, you really do have to do your research. You have to know what you're getting yourself in for. I mean, I think what I first thought was, I'm going to buy a crumbling ruin on an olive field and it'll be so romantic. And then I realized that the permits and expense to build, and obviously trying to do a project like that when you have no idea and you'd be living in Australia would be just insane. So I had to, reassess what was realistic for someone who wanted it as a holiday home. And it took different forms in the search, but I mean, it was obsessive. I was looking every single night, and I joined all the Facebook groups and all the different forums and connected with lots of other people who had done similar things. And I mean, in travel, and it is sort of an extension of travel, buying and renovating overseas, but like travel, people are very supportive. They're really encouraging, and that's how I first walked the Camino, actually, because I heard about it and I read a blog and I wrote to the guy who wrote the blog and said, "Gosh, this just sounds like the most incredible thing," not expecting that he would write back. And he wrote back, I think, the next day and said, "It's the best thing you'll ever do. If you want any help at all, if you have any questions, let me know." And I thought, perfect stranger on the other side of the world who doesn't know me is willing to be so supportive and encouraging and helpful. And that's what the Camino was. And then that led to this life in active travel and walking in Europe. And it did end up changing my life and continues to do that, because then walking in Europe led to buying the place. And I just found that people were so helpful and encouraging, and you just figure the rest out. But it's a nice community. It really is.
What a remarkable life that you now lead, and I'm sure lots of people would love to follow in your footsteps. But we are running out of time, so I'm going to ask you the question that we ask all our interviewees, which is, what's the most bizarre thing that's ever happened to you on your travels?
But I'm an obsessive planner, so it's funny. People always say, you research things so much, nothing's a surprise. And I think that's possibly true. I do. I research things like crazy. But the country Georgia was probably one of the most surprising places that I've traveled to. I'm not sure if you've been, but to start to finish, that place just really surprised me. But I had what I found quite bizarre dining experience in a family homestay where they just I was traveling with a friend and they took us into a room, sat us down, walked out, shut the door, and we were sort of sitting waiting. And then they came back in and started laying down some food. Beautiful food in Georgia, by the way. As someone who loves food and wine, it's a wonderful country for that. And then they left, and then they came back with another couple of plates, and then they left, and they came back with another couple of plates. Just thinking, what on earth is going on? Like, there was just so much food. And so I've got photos of this table. There were like 20 or more dishes on this table, and I just sort of thought, this is really strange. I don't know when this is going to stop or how they expect us to eat all this food. And they kept topping up the wine, and I had this kind of idea that it would be really impolite to leave anything, so I was sort of eating and drinking everything. Had a terrible hangover the next day, and just everything in Georgia was a bit of a surprise. And they have the most generous way of hosting. Their hospitality is something else. So you will get a very generous dinner if you have a homestay experience in Georgia. And I had no idea what was going on, and I just thought the whole thing was quite ridiculous, but delicious and fun in the end.
Well, I talk about Italy on steroids, right?
Yes, yeah. Incredible place. I mean, that was a few years ago, and a lot more people are going to Georgia, and as they should. It's an incredible country. But very, very generous with their food and drink. Very.
Oh, look, it's been so great to chat with you, and we'll put all the links to where people can follow your adventures, and also for the UTRAX walks in the show notes.
Great. Thank you very much. It's been really nice to talk to you too.
That was hiking guide Jaclyn Beagley talking about the French Camino, and I loved hearing her talk about the Umbria Plateau. Combined with the food and wine, it definitely makes you want to go there. So you can just check out the route that Jaclyn talks about at utrax.com.
If you'd like to help support our production costs, you can buy us a coffee at coffee.com/theworldawaits. That's ko-fi.com/theworldawaits, so we can continue to bring you inspirational travel interviews with the world's best.
Our tip this week is talking about discovering what's new on the Sunshine Coast. And the big news is hotels, with the first major hotel opening on the Sunshine Coast since 1989.
Yes, and that's the Avani Mooloolaba Beach Hotel, which opens in April. And I'm told it'll open before my birthday, which is the 28th. So we know.
Oh, I can see a birthday present coming up from your husband, Kirsty.
Yeah, if you listen to the podcast. So a short walk from Mooloolaba Beach is a 180-room hotel, and it's Avani's debut in Australia. And if you remember, we recently gave away a holiday at the Avani Khao Lak in Thailand, actually. And Belle also stayed at Avani Maldives recently too, so you can head on back and take a listen to those episodes. And they've got a really good track record in running hotels in tropical locations.
Other new hotels include a boutique farm stay called 66 Acres. So this reimagines caravanning holidays. It is acreage that has some accommodation, but also it's got powered sites for motorhomes, RVs, tents, caravans. But the reimagining of it is that it's got a restaurant on site now, which showcases local produce and craft beers, and 7 heated magnesium plunge pools. I mean, how good is that? That just sounds awesome. And farm stays are so hot right now. The new Fila Casablanca opened in 2025 near Yamundi. This is a colonial homestead for up to 12 guests. So I am thinking house party. Woo! And there are also new villas at a sustainable property called Mayan Farm. And 2026 will see the opening of yet another new farm stay, Seven Hills Estate, which backs onto the Conondale National Park.
Yeah, and the other big news is in Noosa, where the beloved Sofitel Noosa has had a multi-million-dollar upgrade and name change to Elysium Noosa Resort, and that opens in February. And if you are hunting for a non-hotel option, then the new Awa Noosa is a collection of high-end holiday homes and a penthouse in Little Cove. And if you scoot on back to episode 129, which isn't that many episodes back because we're at 132, you will hear me talking about a weekend that I spent in Noosa, which was just incredible, and I just love it up there so much. I had a remarkable time and talked about some of the other things that you can do that maybe you hadn't thought of.
Well, there's also even more new experiences now, including the fully supported 5-day hike through the Kaluula Great Walk, which is 100 kilometres up the coast through the Great Sandy National Park. There are new Indigenous-themed canoe tours with saltwater eco-tours, and stargazing with the Mystic Mountains new astronomy tours for shimmering Milky Way spotting. And we will put a link to all of these new properties and experiences in the show notes. Next week, we are going from adventurers and hiking to bathing as we are talking to Charles Davidson, the co-founder of the Peninsula Hot Springs on the Mornington Peninsula here in Victoria. But before he opens this iconic property, Charles spent years bathing all around the world in the name of research. And we are chatting about some of the extraordinary experiences you can have in hot, therapeutic water. So stay tuned for that one.
Yes, I can't wait to hear that. Amazing. The Peninsula Hot Springs is so iconic. And we'd love it if you followed us on socials. You'll find us at The World Awaits Podcast on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. And feel free to drop us a line at hello@theworldawaits.au. We love hearing from our listeners. And if you're enjoying this episode, please give us a rating or a review.
That's a wrap for The World Awaits this week. Click to subscribe anywhere you listen to your favourite pods.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.